element of surprise.
If you've been on Instagram long enough, you have seen this guy. And you may have wondered, how did this guy just end up everywhere on Instagram? And who is he and what does he do? Well, I didn't discover him from the element of surprise meme. No. I found him while watching an episode of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And they used to stream all of their shows on a cool independent wrestling app that doesn't exist anymore. But the guy really stuck out to me on that smaller stage. I think a lot of times we forget that professional wrestling, yes, is the big lights and glamour of WWE, AEW, TNA, but it's also the more sports looking appeal of a lot of Japanese promotions or the smaller comedy companies like Chikara or Kaiju Big Battle or DDT out of Japan. There is a whole gambit of wrestling and there's something for everybody. Now, me, I'm a musician and I am a local musician. And so I understand that I will not be Taylor Swift. I'm too old and not good looking enough to be at the very top of the music industry. But she doesn't do what I do, which is bring live music to a local population, a local community, and I build networks with them. And I might be able to inspire the next Taylor Swift. I might be able to give a live music experience to somebody who cannot afford to experience Taylor Swift, but I'm not Taylor Swift, and that's not my spot in the ecosystem of music. And so I think when people think independent wrestling, they picture it as a bunch of guys who are just trying to get to the big show and not appreciating the work and the service they bring to their local communities. And so I wanted to start a series where I highlight some of my favorite independent or lesser known wrestlers and hopefully introduce you to somebody who you may enjoy. And Mikey O'Shea, let's talk about him first as a professional wrestler.
For myself, for my friends, for my family forever.
He is an old school big guy. You know, he's not the big muscled out freak. He is a larger person like myself. And I think that's one cool thing about wrestling is the variety of body shapes and styles. And despite how heavy he is, the guy moves light as a feather. He is very quick, very explosive, very powerful, and is a joy to watch in the ring. A lot of times when you have these smaller companies, you're going to see guys that are herky-jerky or their timing is off, but his timing is spot on. And I've not seen him have a bad match. And I watch him all over YouTube, Instagram, different wrestling apps, and the guy puts on a great show. And one thing that he is very, very good at, which I think is taken for granted when you get to the bigger companies, you tell the story through your actions. One, because you can't speak to the crowd because it's going to be pointless to anybody not in the front row. And so what you do is you have big exaggerated movements in a big crowded space and the commentators vocally tell your story. But Mikey, he interacts with the crowd and he does it in a funny way.
When you have the advantage of being heavier than any of your opponents.
I always compare him to that time in TNA wrestling when Booker T was jumping a guy and he grabbed a microphone and he started talking like this and started commentating as he was kicking the guy. And he's like, oh, Booker T kicks him. Oh, he hits him again. But Mikey is a lot of the same way where he will banter with the audience. And if the audience says something funny, he'll bring it back around to them. Here, I'll just show you a few clips right now.
When fans say the darndest things,
Why would you say the P word? Positive? So I kick out of a move on the P word? Okay!
But I briefly got on TikTok. Now this girl had an account there, and he would do these videos where it would be one thing and it would suck you in visually. And then he would pop up and scream,
Element of surprise!
and it was truly a jump scare and a shock. And so you would see other creators stitching his element of surprise, and they would hop in with their own element of surprise. And he would get wind of this, and it became like a rushing nesting doll of him doing his video, somebody reacting to his video with the element of surprise, and be like, "Ha, you thought you had me?" Then another. I have seen it stitched up to like 10 times of him going back and forth with different TikTok accounts. And after I left TikTok, I really started to notice that he was stepping his game up on Instagram. Not only was he taking these seemingly innocuous videos and jumping on the end of it with a jump scare, but he started changing his name.
Element of surprise!
And so, you would see something like a guy skateboarding, and you feel like something bad's going to happen, and you look at the channel name, and it's Phil Army, and you're like, when did I subscribe?
Element of surprise!
Holy shit, and there he is, element of surprise. And I think it's a very cool and creative way of marketing himself. What Mikey has been able to do is to take this meme of element of surprise that he created and grow his platform. And then when he posts wrestling videos, you'll see people in the comments like, whoa, this guy's a professional wrestler. Oh, he's good. Oh, I'm going to have to keep an eye out for him. I'm going to have to go watch his YouTube channel. And so I think that Mikey O'Shea is a great example of a guy who is in a niche of entertainment, has taken his personality and created something that has brought him to the eyes of thousands of people who would have never heard of him otherwise, and brings a spotlight to not only himself but the other independent wrestlers he works with. And so this has been my first my first video on independent wrestlers I think you should know. If there's any suggestions you have, drop them in the comments. And mainly what I want to do with this whole channel is expose you to entertainment that will hopefully lighten your load in what are arguably turbulent times. We're going to talk about comics. We're going to talk about action figures, talk about movies, talk about wrestling. Just try to bring some positivity and joy into the world. So go check out Mikey O'Shea. He is prolific on Instagram. I will put up any socials of his I can find right now on the video. You will not be disappointed. And who knows, maybe when you start following him, you'll see a advertisement for a time he'll be wrestling in your town, and you can experiment Mikey O'Shea and the element of surprise in person. I will see you next time. Until then, keep watching that wrestling, independent or otherwise. Take care of yourself.